language in students' poems. Okay, so, and this is from Anissa.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Anissa, it's now your time. I know you've been waiting for this, like everyone else. Sorry, guys. So we do need somebody to go first and others to go next. Now, Anissa, Mar 7.
Okay. Um, Thank you for the opportunity. I think I don't need to introduce myself again. Let's talk about um, my research proposal. Well, the title is An Analysis of Figurative Language in Students' Poems. Well, the reason behind choosing this topic is firstly because the nature of the language itself. According to Arifa, language is a system of conventional spoken of written symbols used by people to communicate. In line with Arifa, Noor and friends claimed that people need the language to share, help, find, and provide ideas and useful information for others. The next is there are a lot of figurative languages found in a poem. If we read a poem, we will find many figurative languages there. That's why I want to analyze this. And then the next one is according to Risdianto, figurative language is one of the elements in poetry. It is interesting that the fact figurative language is one of the elements in poetry. That's why there are a lot of figurative languages found in a poem. Well, the next is the objective of the research. Actually, the objective of the research is the answer from the formulation of the research, which are do the students use figurative language in their poem? And then the second one is what types of figurative language do students use in their poems? And then the last one is um, what types is mostly used by the students in their poems? What? Yeah, okay. Well, this is the objective of the research. First, to find out whether or not students use figurative language in their poems, and then to analyze types of figurative language students use in their poems. And the last one is to find out the most used types of figurative language in students' poems. Well, actually, the researcher or the researcher is expected this research to give students a good comprehension about figurative language, so they can use it in producing a poem. And then also the researcher uh, expect that it can give the teacher a new insight about the student skill in producing a poem, especially using figurative language. Next, about the literature review. Yo, let's talk about the literature review. Actually, I didn't put a lot uh, material in here, but let me just explain it. So in the literature review, I divided it into two subchapters. The first one is about figurative language, and the second one is about the poem. Well, for the figurative language, I explained about the definition. Well, there are several experts such as Locke, Patrick, Perrin, and Abrams that define figurative language that can be concluded, figurative language is language which has different meaning from what it is said. And then for the types, I used parentheses that said there are three types of figurative language. They are figurative language by contrast, by association, and by comparison. And for by contrast, there are paradox, hyperbole, litotes, and irony. And for by association, there are metonymy, symbol, synecdoche, and allegory. And for the comparison, figurative language by comparison, there are metaphor, simile, personification, and apostrophe. And for the poem, I also put the definition about poem based on the theories of the expert, such as Bernie and Joe, Jakey, and Abrams. And in conclusion, I mean, it can be concluded from their theory that poem is forms of word which consists or which has a beautiful rhythm that can explore ideas or emotion. And then for the elements, poems has figure, imagery, and then rhythm, rhyme, and tone. And then for the writing poem, it means that how to write poem. So basically, according to William, poem is something important in curriculum. And then Brown formulated the way of producing poem for the beginner. Well, it is the previous study. Well, I have found a lot of previous studies. I mean, a lot of studies that related to my topic, which is figurative language in poem. But here, I I chose three researchers that use or did the research uh, closest with to my topic. The first is Dwi Nur Hasana. The title is An Analysis of Figurative Language Used in Some Poems by Oscar Wilde. And the second one is Fitri Irianti with title A Figurative Analysis on Sylvia Plath Poems. And then the last one is Damanhuri with title Imagery and Figurative Language Analysis on Robert Frost's poems To Earthward and Wind and Window Flower. Those three researchers, among those three researchers, there are two researchers that use the similar method with me, which is descriptive qualitative, and then they are Dwi and Fitri. And for Damanhuri, he used analytic descriptive. And then for the instrument, um, those three researchers use the the real poems written by poets as their instrument. And then for the result, those three researchers found have similar result, which is they found the poem consists of, consists a lot of figurative language, and of course, uh, each poem has different types of figurative language that is used. Well, what are the similarities and differences between my research and theirs? Well, let's discuss it one by one. The first one is similarities. Yeah, it's very clear that I have the similar topic with them, which is figurative language in poem. And then about the method, like I said before, I have the similar method with um, Fitri and uh, Rini, or I forgot the name. And then for the next similarities is the objective of the study. Well, we have the same objective of the study, which is to find out the types of figurative language used in the poem. And another similarity that I forgot to put is the oh no, that's it. Next, the differences. The differences is the differences are students writing. Students writing here means I use students writing or poems made by the students as the instrument. Meanwhile, those three researchers use the real poems written by poets as their instrument. And then education. What does it mean? Well, it means that I try to relate that topic with education field, such as in my research proposal, I mentioned that figurative language, or specifically poems, can be an authentic material for English learning. Meanwhile, they didn't do it. They only focused on find out what types of figurative language that used in the poem. Next, the research methodology. Here, I use descriptive qualitative as the method, and then as the design, I use case study, and for the instrument, I use students writing. It is also said that poems made by the students. Next, the population and sample. According to Arikunto, if the population is less than 100 people, you should take all of them. But if it is more than 100 people, you can take at least 10 to 25% of them as the sample. Well, the population here is the 11th grade students in SMA N2 Cibinong Bogor. The total students, the total population is 250 students, and the sample is 33 students from the 11th grade MIPA 6. The next is data collection and analysis. Well, here I I'm there are four process of data collection and analysis. The first one is give the instruction to the students to write a poem, and then the second step is collect the data from the students. Here, the data will be gathered online if the education system is still PJJ, or yeah, online. And then the next step is analyzing the types of figurative language students use in their poems. Well, in this stage, I use parents' theory that I have mentioned before about the types of figurative language, which are by contrast, association, and comparison. And then the last step is determine the most used type of figurative language using Anna Sudijono formula, which is P equal F per N multiplied by 100%. Well, I think that's all. It's just my research timeline. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Anissa, for your presentation. A number of interesting ideas related to your research proposal. By the way, Ibu Fifi, you're already with us again, Bu Fifi. So do you want to ask questions or to say something about Anissa's research plan, Bu Fifi? I'm afraid she's still having problems with internet connection there. Okay, overall, I think your plan sounds good. Quite clear design, simple. Some some areas need update, like references. Okay, so again, if you're talking about something conceptual, so better to use influential or credible sources or reputable sources like textbooks by prominent figures in in the area. For example, I think you're defining language, but by referring not to somebody who is prominent in linguistics, for example. Okay, and that's number one. Now, let me ask you this question. Is poetry or poem writing something common in high school?
Yeah. Actually, I chose this topic because that I have a college, no, family that she's still in the 11th grade, and she asked me about poems. So um, I'm a bit uh, I'm a bit surprised that there is a poem in their material. But after I asked her, the fact is poem is the material in the cross major courses. Sorry, I forgot to mention it, that it is
Mhm.
not the material in the regular English class, but it is material in the cross major courses.
Yeah, no, I was wondering because poem or poetry writing is a special uh, skill of writing. Okay, so even not all native speakers, especially students, can write or can create or can express ideas, emotions in poems. No. So that's why I'm asking you, so how often students in that particular school write poems in their English, or maybe as part of English teaching exercises? I'm not sure because that's not usually it's not common even in the English literature department, for example. Okay, so there is no course of poetry or poem writing, no. So if there are people or students who are interested in this area, usually because of their personal interests or personal hobbies. So do you have something to say, Anissa?
Well, because I found it in their material, even though it is not the regular class.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is okay for them if I ask them to write a poem because uh, as their after I interviewed them, they already produced a poem, and fortunately, I have already seen some of their poems. I mean, like even though they do not really make a poem in thinking in English, but just translate it from Indonesia, from Bahasa to English. But I think it is okay to analyze the figurative language in their poems because after also looking at their material from their teacher, I found that the teacher also explained a bit about the figurative language, such as personification, hyperbole, and so on.
Yeah, but again, this is really challenging. I mean, you need to make sure that this practice of poetry writing in that school, you need to make sure
Mhm.
that um, this school indeed has, although not regular program,
Mhm.
has this opportunity for students to express or to develop their skill. But the question is more about the solidity of your theoretical assumptions. Okay, so please check again. Can you explore previous studies that analyze poems written by EFL students? Okay, so
Okay.
please explore that. Okay, if you can find some, then I think you can have some basis for you to try to do the same, because the previous studies that you explain all written by native speakers,
Mhm.
cannot by
Right.
EFL students. So
Mhm.
again, I think this is the biggest challenge for you to explore. If the issue, if previous researchers already did studies related to the same issue. Okay, so poem or poetry writing by EFL students. Okay, so please highlight that by EFL students.
Okay.
Okay, because usually poetry writing is conducted by advanced students. Okay, so especially in the department of English, for example, English literature department. Okay, maybe that's more logical to do a research project there. But again, you can explore the previous studies first. If you find something there, then I think you can try to go to the site, or maybe to ask people who have access to the site to clarify if that linguistic phenomenon is really there. That's number one. And number two, I think you didn't or haven't mentioned how you're going to connect your research with your field of study, English language teaching. Okay, you mentioned um, again, if you already, for example, you have found some research or studies that address the issue, then you can explore, try to connect that poetry writing is uh, just another exercise to develop writing skills, which is literary writing skills. Okay, but again, this is something, if it is true that students there really practice this, oh, wow, that's incredible. Okay, because literary writing is an advanced writing skill and usually performed by students of English literature departments. Okay, so those are things that you need to explore more, Anissa. Okay, so anything else looks just fine for me. All right, so we're running out of time. Apparently, still two presenters to go, but I think yeah, should be done by 5. Okay. All right, so thanks again, Anissa Marseven. And next,